Tignett's corner, beyond Bent. Janssen! And Blackburn Rovers are 18 minutes away from a Premiership return.
As far as Stewart, just outside the penalty area, flips it central for David Dunn. David Dunn equalises. It just had to be. Dack's corner and it goes. Glance towards goal, and Rovers have taken the lead. And Charlie Mulgrew has scored his 14th of the season. It may well be the goal that sends Rovers back into the Championship.
Good afternoon and happy Easter, all Rovers fans, as our Groundhog Day continues as Rovers fall to another disappointing defeat, this time at home to Bournemouth at Ewood Park this afternoon. And we've gone in search of help today. We're borrowing Ian Herbert from BRFCS, as you can see, to help us through this one. But yeah, I call it Groundhog Day because I think all our minds are made up on the manager. I think we know what is wrong with this side. We know what needs to happen next, but we are going through the same motions again and again and again after the game. So let us know how you feel about the game. Let us know what you think needs to happen next. I can see already the comments are very, very lively. So Ian, yeah, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Delighted, enthralled, excited, all of the above. Crikey, what a day, what a weekend. It's a good job I've got some chocolate to look forward to after this, that's all I'll say.
Yeah, I had my chocolate during the watch along, so that certainly kept me going as well. Glenn, you are most certainly Mr. Positivity on our channel. I'm suspecting this is going to be even more difficult for you as well, but how are you doing?
I'm all right. I've got to the end of Lent, so the beer is back. So all's good in the world. That's the positive I'm taking today. Yeah, I didn't watch the game against Wycombe, and by the sounds of it, it wasn't much or any better than today, and that was pretty abysmal. So yeah, I think today's the day that I've kind of finally edged off the fence onto one side, and yeah, I'll probably come on to that later.
So there you go, Rovers fans. If Glenn is off the fence, then you know that Tony's time is definitely up. And Alex, you've been off the fence for a while. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good. I've just worked out why Glenn is so positive. It's because he doesn't watch the worst games.
I just watched that.
I've just found out why he was Mowbray in for so long. Sorry, Glenn. I just had to put that jab in. But anyway, yeah. It's not been a good Easter for football, has it, really, for us? And I just think, yeah, you said that our minds are made up, and I think tonight it'll be pretty much more the same from me in regards to my opinion on what's going on at the club. But yeah, I think we're all just more concerned now because it's got beyond bad form and it's become more of a nosedive and a bit of a terminal situation. So yeah, I think it's a worrying time for everyone at the minute.
It is. I'll just dip into some of the comments before doing the usual adverts that we do. Ben, no passion or give a damn from the players. They should be apologising and being held to account. Chris, no passion, no care, no technical awareness, no hope. No question that he's well and truly sunk this ship. And the passion and desire was just coming over and over again on the watch along as well. You know, lots of really disappointed fans at the moment. Just going to look further down. Sorry, leap year man. So painful being a Rovers fan at the moment. Wayne, he has to go tonight. Leap year man. We the fans deserve better than this. So lots of angry Rovers fans today, understandably so. So yeah, just a couple of reminders then before we get started. If you do want to call into the show, send us a DM to the Rovers Chat Twitter, and you can come and join the four of us and share in the heartbreak with us and raise your points. And yeah, we are sponsored by Blue Rose Capital, and we are also sponsored by 6YardsOut.com.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6YardsOut.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.
Thank you to our two very kind sponsors all season. So Ian, as you're our guest today, I'm going to start with you. You know, sum up your thoughts on the game and how you thought Rovers played, and just, yeah, sum up just what do we do? How do we rid ourselves of this Groundhog Day? What happens next?
There's a very short answer, isn't there, and a very pithy one, or there's probably a more considered and more. So let's try and go for the more considered one. I thought today was played at the pace of a pre-season friendly, with all the intensity of a pre-season friendly. I didn't see players busting a gut. I didn't see, well, right from the off with just the formation, you wondered where the goals were going to come from. It was going to be a case of trying to play Armstrong in and hope that with his pace he could do something. That didn't happen, and we didn't really seem to have much clue of what to do when it was painfully obvious that didn't happen. Bournemouth really didn't need to stretch themselves to beat us. I think that's the biggest concern. I don't think we're pushing our opponents and making them dig deep to get a result against us. It feels like we're almost handing it to them on a silver salver and saying, knock yourself out. There's 3 points for the taking. Where do we go from here? Crikey. We could do hours on that, couldn't we? And I suspect we might get into that debate a bit later on. So I'll kind of hold back on that. But the concerns are blindingly obvious, and I don't think I'm providing any amazing insight by saying with a number of players out of contract in the summer, with a load of low knees going back, so there's half a squad potentially that needs replacing. Who is the best placed person to replace that half of the squad? That's the question that needs answering. And whether you agree with the answer to that question or not, that's what should drive the next course of action. So if you think Mowbray isn't the right person, you should change the manager. If you think Mowbray is the right person, then you get on with it now, because we're going to be in turmoil in the summer just by replacing the players that we know that are out of contract. So get them signed up, get them moved on, sort out as many of the low knees as you can to give us some stability. But is Mowbray the right person to do that? Well, I think we'll get into that, so I'll let the other panelists have a say.
I can see in the comments people are saying about a 6 p.m. statement. I have been refreshing Twitter manically. I can't see any confirmation of that, so I don't know where that's come from. So someone's obviously being naughty with a 6 o'clock statement. But I will keep my eye out on Twitter as people are talking. Glenn, I'm going to come to you next. I think today, this is not Norwich City, who are top of the table. This is not Watford, who are in good form. This is not Manchester City rocking up at Ewood Park. Let's be fair. This is Bournemouth that have had a bit of an up and down season. Not the greatest. I think the most disappointing thing for me today, just the ease at that victory for Bournemouth. It was an absolute stroll in the park for Bournemouth. They've only had 42% possession as well. They had extra gears they could go into. And we were just no match, no passion, no desire, just nothing that looked like that result was going to be any different today. And I think that is the most disappointing thing for me. We've not played well at all, have we? And just, sum up your thoughts on the game.
Yeah, it's just, you always felt that Bournemouth, they're not a great side. I mean, you look at the money they've spent in their squad and they should be a great side. They've got a fullback for 15 million, a defensive midfielder for 25. They're not a great side, but they could have easily upped it another 2 gears today. You got the impression that if we went 1 up, we probably weren't going to win that game. Our only chance of getting something would be a late goal, but we were never going to get that. I mean, from the first minute, the ball into the corner, the ref gives a soft free kick, I thought, and that just set the tone for the game. We never really created anything. Bournemouth always looked like if they needed to, they could get forward, they could get a free kick, they could create something. I think I counted they had 3 chances and scored 2 of them. And I mean, you mentioned before we came live about Danjuma's goal where he pops it through Lenihan's legs and slots it away. But when do we ever have that space for Dolan or someone to pop it through someone's legs, get round and slot it? It just never happens. My friend was telling me at the beginning of the game, he was saying that our team on paper, there's a lot of those players would get into other championship teams. And I'm not so sure anymore because I didn't see anything today. I just thought it's like someone's told them, we're already safe, so we've not really got anything to play for. I don't want to get injured if I'm moving on and whatnot. And it was just, we went 1-0 down, we went 2-0 down. There's no kind of fight or anything. There's no kind of reaction to going behind. As I said, today's the day I've kind of shifted off the fence. And what's really frustrated me is we're 2-0 down and he brings Downing and Bennett on and leaves Brereton on the bench. And it's just madness. It's Downing, Bennett and Buckley, and he leaves Brereton on the bench. It just begs belief for me. That's you're chasing a goal. Stuart Downing loved Stuart Downing last season, but what's the point of him this year? He's just kind of making numbers up, really. I'd much rather have someone from the under-23s doing that, personally. I'm just just such a letdown again. I kind of thought we saw the picture of the pitch before the game, and it was a nice pitch. You thought, we might be able to get it down and play it. And yeah, we do in our own half, and then we just don't create anything in the opposition half. And that's the frustration for me, is we've scored goals much earlier in the season, but we haven't looked like scoring for... I think I came on a post-match probably about 6 weeks ago, and we said last time we looked good was Preston away. And I think that's still the case, is Preston away. And when was that? Kind of November, December time? It's ages ago.
Yeah, and Alex, on the watch along and also the on the other side and stuff, I think most people weren't expecting Rovers to win today. But actually, I think one thing that has happened today is actually the acuteness of our situation now as a football club, with the way the results have gone. Preston won today, Forest won today, etc., etc. And Rotherham have got 4 games in hand on us, and we've also got to play them in the penultimate game of the season. Make no mistake now, we are 1 win in 14. We are free falling. And as Ian has said there with the contractual situation, and as Glenn's raised with the level of performance today, where is our next win coming from? And make no mistake, we are involved in a relegation battle now, aren't we?
I think today what was reinforced for me was just the ease at which we've been beaten this season so regularly. I think that's our 18th defeat of the season. And we only lost 19 the season we got relegated. So we're only 1 defeat behind where we were in 16-17, which is quite an unbelievable stat, isn't it? I think it's safe to say we'll surpass that, won't we? I can't see us... I can see us losing more than 2 games before the end of the season. So that just gives you an indication of the way games have gone this year, the way we've not been able to get back into games when things have been going against us, when we've gone 1-0 down. We've not been able to respond very well to that. And I said, didn't I, on Friday, that the look on the Wycombe bench when we conceded the goal, they knew that the game was wrapped up there and then. So I think the acuteness of the situation for me boils down to this, that the players today didn't look like they were playing for the manager. Now, that hasn't happened very often since Mowbray's been manager at this football club. There's been very few occasions I've walked off the ground and been disappointed with the effort and the application of the team. And I think today was one of the few occasions that I can say that, and that's a concern on the back of the run of form we've been on. I think if you want to look at the league table, just as we speak now, Sheff Wednesday have gone 1-0 up, so I can just add some more positivity into that conversation right there. I think the issue that Rovers have got is that we don't have a game against one of those typical mid-table teams in the last 3 or 4 games of the season. They're all teams that are either fighting for the playoffs, like Cardiff next week, or they're teams that are generally in the bottom 6 trying to avoid relegation. And I think we're in a situation where we've hit a bit of a perfect storm, that I cannot see how we arrest this nosedive with the run of form we're on. I think the only way we do that is by a change of ideas, a change of man in the dugout. And, you know, I've been so clear on my opinions on this. No one is surprised when I say this, but at any normal club, there is a club statement at 6 p.m. tonight, and the manager is gone. And in fact, at a normal club, the manager would have been gone a few weeks ago, because, you know, for a manager that has said that top 6 was the aim this season, that's not me saying it. The manager said that. We're now 17th in the division and falling. So I don't really know where we go from here, to be honest with you. Yeah, just really worrying times, because I think that another aspect of the way we're feeling right now is the level of apathy. That the feeling when we concede a goal just isn't the same anymore. It's just become like a shrug of the shoulders now, and that's a real worry. And I think there's that level of frustration that we're not in the ground to see this, and that I think as supporters we feel a little bit powerless now. That there would be rumblings of discontent, and that there would be a point made to the people in the director's box and in the dugout that this is not acceptable. And I think the fact that we're online in this medium, where really people at the club are insulated from all of this just makes this whole situation that more infuriating for all of us. So yeah, I think they're my initial thoughts on things as they stand right now. But yeah, just really worrying.
There's an acid test coming up there with regard to supporter feedback, and that's when season tickets go on sale.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because the most obvious way that supporters can provide feedback right now, given the circumstances that we're in, is when those tickets go on sale. So if you're the FD of the club, you've got to be sort of saying we've got to get as much revenue in as we possibly can, and you've got to be balancing that against the decisions that you're making around the playing side of the staff. And I cannot conceive of the majority of Rovers fans being excited at the prospect of another season of Mulberry right now, unless we win the last 6 games on the bounce.
Rovers fans running down to the Rovers store to buy a season ticket for next season at this rate. And you then go into the issues of reduced revenue, so you get reduced playing budget, and so it's a never-ending downward spiral.
It becomes a vicious spiral very, very quickly. That's the problem, and that's why Wag gets paid $300,000 a year to resolve it. So it's about time he earned his money, frankly, because I think what he's offered so far in terms of commercial offering, in terms of packaging and rewarding loyalty to supporters, has been thin on the ground. What is sole strategy seems to be identifying 5,000 or 6,000 Rovers fans that would walk over broken glass to watch Rovers and try and screw as much money out of them as they possibly can. And there'll come a point where even the faith of those people will be tested and will not attract new people to replace them at the right rate. So it's a big summer. It really is a big summer.
I think just on Waggett, just to jump in there, right? I remember, was it kind of 18 months, 2 years ago, he did the charity thing where he locked himself in the cells in the Darwin end. I think if he did that for charity now, he'd raise a bit more money. That might be the way to get the money in. He's not the favourite person, is he, around the club at the minute?
Oh, dear. And Ian, you, with what you said there, you actually segued really nicely into what my question to you was going to be about. The 14-15 season where we had that really good squad, with Rhodes and Gstead and Kearney and that squad at that time that did underachieve probably. We then absolutely fell off a cliff, didn't we, in terms of, the next lot of players that came in, and that ultimately led to our relegation. This isn't just about, avoiding relegation to League One this season. We're at fear. We have a real problem now that we could fall off a cliff again, don't we, in terms of the players we're going to have, all that season ticket stuff that you've said there. It is desperate times at the moment, isn't it? And I don't mean to be dramatic. We've got a few problems to solve, not just on the pitch.
Yeah. Well, let's take football as an industry. If you're not in the Premier League and you've not got access to the TV revenues, you are scrapping for every single penny that you can bring into your club right now, right throughout the EFL. Rovers are no different in that respect. The FFP, whether you agree with it or not, does provide constraints. So we can't just go cap in hand to our owners. The training ground, whether that's raising money or whether that's actually going to cost Venky's money, depending on which Steve Waggett statement you listen to, it is another imponderable. It just feels at the moment that if you were the person that sort of said, well, here's a good thing to do, here's a bad thing to do, that would put the club in a better position, we seem to be putting all the ticks in the wrong column right now. So if we can't afford to buy players, we've got to develop our own. So hang on a minute, what's going on with the academy and the training ground then? That doesn't make sense. You want to infuse the supporters to get them to renew season tickets and to bring back people that have gone. Well, the results on the field clearly aren't going to do that. What can we do to make it an attractive offering? In terms of the commercial operation, there is nothing. There's just nothing to buy. Anybody wanting to spend money just simply can't do it right now. And it's been that case for quite some time. So there's a perfect storm that's brewing within Rovers, within a football industry that's going to struggle because of COVID. And why would a prospective talented player pick us? When you look at the record and you look at our league table, we've got to sell ourselves somehow. So whether that is with a new manager, you've got to look at what levers you have to press. But it just feels too cosy. I think the Waggett, Mowbray, Venus triumvirate is just too cosy. There isn't the tension that you'd expect there in a business where a CEO is demanding performance of the people that work for him. It feels more like it's three mates that have started a business together. and they just want to keep it ticking over. And that's the bit that worries me. I don't think we resonate in Pune. People that are expecting and hoping that Venkis will jump in, I'm not so sure they're even aware of the situation, to be truthful. So there's so much got to happen over the next few weeks to give us hope for next season.
Yeah, and what you said there about Venkis, Ian, I did spot that in the comments and I'm struggling to find it. But yeah, we'd be really surprised if Venkis have even looked at the result today. So, we've somehow got to get through to them, or somehow there's got to be a message there that these results are not going our way. And Leap Year Man, God, these comments are flying in. Leap Year Man made a really interesting point here. Yeah, if we don't bridge this season, Leap Year Man, and we go into next season, there is an irony, isn't there, that we're going to be that same side. And obviously that season did not end very well. Glenn, we've spoken about on this channel before about, and Ian mentioned it as well when he joined us for the Tony Mowbray show in January that we did, about the benefit of someone coming in now and eyeballing the team, just seeing what's wrong, maybe convincing the likes of Nyambe and others, no, stay because we've got a plan. With how the results are going, with the need for a win or two that we need because of the relegation, we have to get the next manager in before the end of the season now, don't we? That just has to happen. It can't be an interim manager. Can't be Damien Johnson until the end of the season. We've got to get the next manager of Blackburn Rovers Football Club into this team now to give us as fans some inspiration for next season, so that we're going to go and buy those season tickets, as Ian says, and hopefully to bridge this season and try and go again next season and just start that journey again, start that next cycle of players again.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I think if I'm a manager, though, I don't look at Rovers and think that's the job for me at the minute. You're tumbling down. You've got to be kind of the history of managers at our club, the history of the owners' relationship. You've kind of almost got to have a screw loose to be considering it, especially given the performances at the minute. I'm actually at the point now where any change is probably good, whether it's temporary or permanent, just something to get us another win. That's kind of where I'm at. I think if it's give it Damien Johnson for the last 5-6 games, I'm kind of at that point now. I just think a change is needed, just something to kind of tear it all up a little bit. I think this has absolutely snuck up on the Venkis, if you ask me. I think they were in such a place of comfort, thinking, well, we've got Mowbray, we're back in the Championship, we're comfortably mid-table, we're putting a little bit of money in, we're tidying them over, and it's all of a sudden, boom, you're in a relegation battle again. You're going to have to do something. And I think they're probably absolutely terrified of making the wrong decision again. They've done it so many times. I think, obviously, Mowbray at the time was a fantastic appointment and he'd been brilliant for the club, but pulling the trigger now, he's kind of, you can see they're probably sort of hopefully hovering over the button and thinking, well, yeah, we've not won and we need to change it. But then we got 𝐒𝐿𝐄 and look how that went. Look how Steve Keane went. And you can kind of see where they're at. But I think we're at the point now where doing nothing is the worst option. I think, like you said, Alex, Sheff Wednesday are winning. I can't decide in my head whether Wycombe beating Rotherham is a good result or not, because they're both below us. It's one less game for Rotherham. So maybe that is a better result. But we're very much in a relegation battle. I just think we're going to struggle to get a good candidate at this stage of the season, given our current form. There's not really anybody out there that you'd look at and say, bring him in. He'll get us a couple of wins, give us a bit of momentum for next season. The players will want to play for him. And I just can't see that person. And that's the worry for me, is we kind of amble towards the end of the season. Maybe we stay up just because of the points we've got on the board. Get to the end of the season, it's, we've made it. We'll be all right next season. Like we were under Steve Keane, and we stayed up at Wolves on the last day of the season. You think, is that the hump? Are we over it? And I worry that we're not. And the players' contract situation, if Mowbray is the issue and that's why players don't want to sign, it's much bigger than the results on the pitch. It's those 8, 9, 10 players that we're going to lose at the end of the season. And all of a sudden, you're having to find 8, 9, 10 players from somewhere. I don't particularly want a lot of loan signings again, because it's not the long run, is it? It's kind of, I'm here for 6, 12 months and then I'm back off to wherever. I don't have an invested interest. It's such a ridiculous situation we've managed to get ourselves in when you look at the end of January and where we were. End of January, if you'd have offered the Rovers job to anybody, they'd probably have, outside the Premier League, seen it as an attractive proposition. It's anything but that now. It's kind of a little bit of a poison chalice, because you go in and you could potentially get relegated. You stay up, you've then got, well, I've got all these players that might be leaving. I'm not really going to have any money to spend. If I was a manager, and I'm die or a lifelong Rovers supporter, I probably wouldn't take the job. It's madness. It's just, yeah.
I don't think we'll have any problem getting somebody in because there's 48 teams lower than us in the league table. The issue is, can we get somebody in who's capable of doing the job? That's the challenge. So I think, there's never a shortage of football managers. There's a shortage of good ones that can do the job. That's the challenge. So and getting rid of Mowbray is only half the equation. I think you're right sort of saying there's a short-term imperative, which is make sure we don't go down. But very closely aligned to that is the medium, longer-term imperative of, well, what's going to happen in the summer? If just getting rid of him means we win 2 out the next 4, and we've got plus 50-odd points, and you can sort of like breathe a sigh of relief, then that's a different kettle of fish. Interesting that Danny Cowley went to Portsmouth on a contract at the end of the season. Pearson's gone to Bristol City on a contract to the end of the season. So it feels like there's a number of clubs at the moment that are almost sort of say, well, we just need to change, we just need to try something, but let's not tie ourselves into somebody on a 3-year deal that we can't then unravel. I think that's an option that we should seriously be exploring right now.
There's loads of sound bites coming out of Twitter and stuff, which I've been keeping an eye on. So I'll read some of those in a moment. I'm just going to go into the comments just about this manager talk. It's generating a lot of discussion, as you can imagine. Ben, temporary manager until the end of the season seriously makes no sense, because if you give it Johnson, he does okay, then gets job full-time, not good. Second, he's part of the coaching team, so not the answer. Wiltshire, I actually think a temporary manager gives them the time to find the right appointment. Rushing it now and getting the wrong manager could do more harm than good. I would like to think someone like Damian Johnson, a temporary manager or something, would just get those couple of wins so that we can just take our time for the appointment. But then I do just want someone to just come and eyeball everything and see what's going on with these players, try and convince them to stay, etc., etc. So I'm kind of on both sides of the fence with that one. Leap Year Man, can't see many in our squad who'd be up for a relegation scrap. No obvious leaders. And then I think your mum, Glenn, Damian Johnson to the end of the season. And I'm covering your face with your mum's comment. How sad. Damian Johnson to the end of the season to try and get a permanent manager in now would be a nightmare. The wrong person could be picked in a knee-jerk. Johnson could be the new Tony Parks. So Alex, I think I did this to you last week and I annoyed you, so I'm going to do it again. I'm going to read you what Tony Mowbray's been saying to Jacob Crook. You don't know how much it hurts to be a football manager and stand on that touchline. You can't comprehend it and you won't be able to. Not any of you in this room. How much it means, how much you invest in a team and a group of players and individuals to try and make them better, to make them understand what it takes to be a professional footballer. I'm just working away with them to make them better and individually better. And as I said, I'm long enough in the job to know it's a results business. This is football. Let's see how we go. That statement annoys me for 2 reasons. One, it's coming across as, oh, I'm a manager. He's doing the whole emotional kind of stuff, pulling on the heartstrings. Secondly, there's nothing in that quote. I need to see the rest of Jacob's story. Nothing in that quote that says today's result was unacceptable. I am the man to turn this around. He's just gone to that moping stage again. How does that comment make you feel when he's coming out with stuff like that?
Well, he said it's emotional on the sideline watching his team. I say, well, it feels even worse as a fan watching his team win 1 in 14 games. I think we're the ones that pay our money, our £10 every week. You know, how stupid are we? And we are the ones that ultimately will be here long after the manager is gone. You know, whether Mowbray lasts this period of time or not, the fact remains that us 4 will be here long after this manager. And so the whole sympathy card that's being played, I find it hard to empathise, I have to say. Particularly when this manager said repeatedly, not only at this club, but his previous clubs, that if he ever becomes a burden on the club, that he will resign. And I don't have an issue with a manager not walking away from a massive sum of money. If I was under contract on his salary, would I walk away from a massive sum of money? Probably not, because I'd want to look after my family and make sure that the mortgage was paid for. But you can't come out and present yourself as an honourable guy and say that you'll walk away if you become a burden and then not do so when you do become a burden. And I'm sorry, Tony, but 1 win in 14 is more than a burden. And I think we'd all agree on that. That, you know, if you want my general opinion on the manager, I would agree with some of the comments that you've just read out, saying that I think the smart, prudent decision would be to sack Marbury and Venus now, put Damien Johnson in charge with probably backup from the Bar, the under-23s manager, and give them the last 6 games. And then, as Ian said, there's many managers in League One at least that have got championship experience that were only contracted until the end of this season. Paul Cook at Ipswich, for example, Danny Cowley at Portsmouth, and there's others as well. So I'm now putting names out there. I said that I wouldn't do so a few months ago out of respect for the manager, but I think with those comments and his past comments in the last few weeks that he's kind of lost my respect. So I don't really feel the need to not band around names anymore, because it's got to the point where it's clearly untenable. I think the wider point about the club, though, is that the problem Rovers have got is that the people we don't actually know whose job it is to sack the manager. We don't actually know who at Ewood Park pulls the trigger on the manager. Is it the chief executive? Is it 𝐒𝐏? Is it the owners themselves? And we actually don't know how those decisions work. I think the problem Rovers have got is that if the decision is the owner's decision, which I fear it is, then they are still the naive owners that they always were. And they still don't know about football and how it operates and when to change a manager and when to intervene in a football club, because they don't understand the game and they've not been around it long enough, and they don't live and breathe the game like we do. They don't have the instinct of when a change is needed. And if they are the ones whose role it is to make that change, if no one on the ground at Ewood Park in the boardroom is brave enough to ring India and say that this is the end of the road and there needs to be a change made, then the club will continue to bumble from one manager to the other, and we will continue to keep managers for too long. You know, Coyle was kept on for too long. I'd have never appointed him in the first place, but even so, he should have gone on Boxing Day, and he was kept on for 2 months too long, and we got relegated. The reasons that these things keep happening is that the owners and the people who make these decisions aren't qualified to make them. And it will be the same if we sack Marbury and we bring Danny Cowley in for next season. You know, in another few years when he reaches the end of the road, like all managers do, again, these owners will still be the naive people that they always were. And that's the problem that Rovers have got, is that, you know, ultimately when it comes down to it, that the people who make the ultimate decisions at this football club don't understand football. And we will be hampered for as long as that remains the case. I don't contest that Venky's have put money into the club and that we rely on them to stay afloat. That is a fact. However, what is also a fact is that quite clearly they don't have the knowledge of football to run a football club properly. And we're seeing that right at the minute. Right. The situation Rovers are in right now is a symptom of a wider problem, that these owners don't understand football. And if they did, they'd have got rid of the manager a long time ago. So I think
sorry.
Yeah, I'm coming to the end, Ian, so you can speak in 10 seconds. Sorry. Yeah, that's really where the frustration is, and I think as Rovers fans, we want the best for our club and we want the Rovers to win. But I think we've got to recognise, and I think I've probably had the wool pulled over my eyes slightly, that I think we need it to sink in that this club will never be a Premier League club while these owners are in place. And it's a very hard thing to say. And it's a hard thing for me because I don't really remember Premier League football very well. And I desperately want us to get back there. But as long as these owners are in situ, we will not reach the Premier League. And that's a very sad thing to say, but I think, speaking from the heart, I think that's the truth. And Ian, I'll defer to you to say something far wider than what I've said.
I'm going to back up largely what you've said. The normal corporate governance rules that you'd expect to see in place in a company where the CEO has some power to hire and fire don't apply at Rovers. My understanding is everything goes through 𝐒𝐏 to India, and significant decisions like that can't be made without the approval Venky's, the Rao family in India. So we don't move quickly. We've seen that in the past about accepting bids and making bids for players as well as managers. The Waggett, Mowbray, Venus collective, it's just a bizarre arrangement. I've never worked anywhere where you recruit your own boss. It just feels utterly Byzantine to do it that way. So I can't believe that there's any real creative tension between those three to make things better. I can't believe that Waggett sits down and has those awkward conversations with the guy that recommended him for the job. That's the challenge. So I think you're absolutely spot on, Alex. Who plays that back to Pune? Well, it's 𝐒𝐄. So what is he taking with him? What knowledge has he got? What reference points has he got to sort of say, these are our options, this is what we could do? It just feels like, I've said it before in a number of different forums, but on the AGM, we are AOB on their agenda for Venky's. We're the last thing before the meeting is called to an end. Blackburn Rovers, oh yeah, what do they need this year? They need another 17 million. Okay, right. Are we done? That's what it feels like. So I think your point is well made, Alex. I don't think we have people close enough to be able to make those decisions. And for a long, long period, until the end of January, Venky's looking at the league table, go, oh, that's okay, it's ticking over. That's fine. Yeah, that's all right. But the warning signs are there, and we've all talked about the warning signs that are going to prevail in the summer as well. And that's the concern. So it's not just about getting over the next 6 games, getting another 6 points and relaxing. The work starts at that point for the next season. And then if season ticket holders don't renew and we don't attract new ones, what happens then? We're just in a death spiral. That's the concern.
Yeah, lots of agreement for what you two have just covered there, and you both made your points really, really well. Andy, we're in irrelevance to the owners, and sadly, we're in irrelevance to the current football map in England until now. When we are an embarrassment again. It's a real shame, as there had been progress. Yeah, it felt good, didn't it, Andy? But it seems like it's unraveling quickly now. Michael, well said, Alex. Learned nothing in 10 years, really. They're accountable. And there was another comment that I've lost, so I'll have to move on. Glenn, I'm going to annoy you now because Tony Mowbray's still at it in the comments, winding everyone up. So here's his 2 quotes, which I'm just going to read out, which have annoyed me, and then I'm going to see if they annoy you, Mr. Positive. That's my challenge. So the first one, to not win football matches, you have to look for reasons. The reasons are there for me. You have to score goals to win football matches. That's the first time in 14 or so matches that we've lost by more than 1 goal, and yet you still lose. I'm going to stop there and just say, our team's having to do more than score 1 goal to beat Blackburn Rovers today. It was a bit of a luxury for Bournemouth to go and get that 2nd goal, but really, as soon as Billing scored, that was job done. And actually, we can rinse and repeat with all these different teams that have beaten Rovers. They don't have to score more than 1 goal to beat us, do they?
It's 1 goal more than we'll score. That's the problem. And it's 1 more goal than we look like scoring. We've got this big fancy. Look how many goals we scored earlier in the season. We were free scoring against 10 men. It was usually because we used the pace of Armstrong. Someone dragged him down, man sent off. You're playing 10 for an hour, for 45 minutes or whatever it is. That's why we were free scoring. We haven't created chances. A team scores 1 goal, like Alex said at the weekend, and they must rub their hands together and go, sit in, dig trench, we'll be fine now. They'll get to the edge of our box, pass it sideways, have a few forays in, but not really create anything, and we'll get home with the 3 points. Bournemouth got the 2nd to get today. They could have had a 3rd late on with Dan Schumer again. It's baffling that we've only lost by 1, but yeah, that's good. No, we've still lost, and we've still not looked like scoring. And you've got Adam Armstrong, who I think that his goal scoring record is a little bit fraudulent, if you ask me. I think he scored a lot of flat track bully goals where he scored multiple goals in games we were winning. People switched on to his style of play, and all of a sudden his goals have dried up. For me, he wouldn't have been anywhere near the penalty today, regardless of needing a goal to pick his form up to put his price up. Give it to someone who's not already missed 2 this season. But I don't get that comment from Mowbray. I don't get that, oh, well, this is the first time we've lost by 2 in so many games. I don't care if we lose by 1 or by 4. We've still got beat, and we've still not offered anything going forward. It's an absolutely ridiculous comment to make.
I'm going to try and annoy you even further. So we've gone on. So that was just the first part. So he goes on to say, we are in every game, but you have to put the ball in the back of the net, and we're not doing that. I think the form of the team has been good. The players are okay, but they need guidance. You can't defend the results, and I wouldn't sit here and try to defend the results, but I watched the performances. And if I'd seen a team and thought we can't win a game, then I would be telling you that. And then he goes on. So, I mean, what is going on in these comments? You know, the Wycombe performance, unacceptable. Today's performance, unacceptable and not at the required level. What is this stuff that he's coming out with in those comments? He cannot believe what is coming out of his mouth at the moment, can he? Surely.
To say the two words, good form, in any sentence that he gives in a post-match press conference at the minute is just mind-boggling. We're so poor. And yeah, the players might try hard in midfield and they might pass it around a bit, but they need guidance. He's the manager. He should be giving them that guidance. And if he can't give them the guidance to create chances, score goals, win games, well, who should be giving them the guidance, Tony? That's where I'm at now. I've kind of, as I said, I've been sat on the fence for so long and kind of been with it's too big a risk to change him now. It's past that stage now for me. It's the risk's there. It's clear and present. It's just, I'm reading the comments and things, and you mentioned about 𝐒𝐄𝐄𝐄 before, Ian, and most clubs are like that, where the football team is probably the last item on the agenda, but they have somebody who knows about football who's reporting that back to the company. They're filling that bit out. That man was John Williams, and they kind of did him out of a job, and that's the biggest error they've made since they took over the club. Absolutely biggest error. You can take Allardyce out of the equation, you can take Jerome Anderson out of it and all the rest. Letting John Williams go is the biggest mistake they ever made, and by God have they paid for it since, financially, reputationally, the rest of it. It's just so frustrating. And in terms of the kind of the accountability, you've got the 𝐒𝐄𝐄𝐄s, you've got Mowbray, Venus, Steve Waggett reporting back in. It is a bit of a boys' club of, well, we'll go tell them this, tell them that we're kind of aiming for top six. And I've no problem with Mowbray saying that pre-season. Even if he doesn't believe it, he's not going to get people buying season tickets if he says we're going to be top half or we're going to be mid-table. No problem with that. But have somebody who's not part of that trio, who's doing that kind of football conversation, that communication with the owners, someone who's a little bit more impartial and saying, well, actually, Tony's been brilliant for us, but I'm not so sure he's the right man anymore. Maybe we should be having a look at other people. And it comes back to what I said before. I think this has crept up out of nowhere on them, and they're now at the point of, we don't know what to do. Let's just leave it as it is, get to the end of the season and we'll be fine. But we won't be, because we've got the contract issue we've got next season. And yeah, But his post-match conferences, they're becoming a little bit kind of bingo-like, aren't they, with some of the stuff he comes out with? It's like, I know people have always kind of criticised him for we tried hard, we didn't get the result, or ball hasn't bounced for us and things, but it's good form. That's baffled me, that how he's thought it's acceptable to say I've seen good form in a team that's won one in, how many is it now? 1 in 14? Just don't mention the words good and form. Say something else.
I'm going to take that as successfully winding Glenn up. So Michael said, Ryan, make it stop. I've just got one more, but I'm not going to ask Glenn because I'm going to move on to Ian because he's going to come in on something else. So he did go on to say, I take pride in the performances, not necessarily results. I think the performance of the team has been fairly good. Tony, I disagree. The Wycombe game was a disgrace. Today's game was also at that level. The performance of the team has not been very good, Tony. So that is wrong. So very, very bad statements. Ian, you spotted something in the comments that you wanted to come in on, didn't you? Do you need me to bring it up again? Or?
No, it's just really picking up from what Alex said earlier about 𝐒𝐄𝐄𝐄𝐄s. And I think the question that's remained unanswered since the moment that they bought the club is, what do they want out of it? What is their end game here? Is it just a plaything for Balaji, or is it this brand to market 𝐒𝐄𝐄𝐄's Express, as I think was originally talked about back in 2010? And we go to them cap in hand every year and ask for money, and they put money in to keep us ticking over. That seems to be the relationship. So it's like a parent-child relationship. We're borrowing money from the bank of mum and dad, and at some point, you hope that they sort of say, don't worry, we're not going to ask for that money back. You're all right. You go off and enjoy your life. God forbid that they ever try and do get the money back. But having said that, the only way that they could possibly get their money back is to get us into the Premier League. There is no other way that we can generate the income that would see those intercompany debts to Venky's paid off. No other way. If they decide that paying 17, 18, 19, 20 million a year, whatever, has just become too big a pain for them and they won't shut, then they are writing off possibly hundreds of millions now. It's a while since I last looked at the accounts, but it's definitely tens of millions of pounds. But they're throwing good money after bad year after year after year to see us tread water. And I just can't come up with a rationale for that. If there was one question I could get answered from India, it would be that. What's in it for you? What are you doing this for? Because everything else is a function of the answer to that question.
Yeah, and it makes no sense, and it still doesn't make sense, does it? You know, it really does not. It's.
I think the big thing as well that is misunderstood about the whole conversation around Venky's is it's like a political debate. It's like merely stating that you think they can't get us promoted means that you expect them to write off all of the debt, or you expect them to leave. I don't expect them to write off all the debt. I don't expect them to leave in the next few years. I'm just merely stating my opinion that as long as these owners remain in situ, I cannot see us being a Premier League club again. And I'll look past Mark's condescending comment about my age and that I don't understand football. I don't actually expect Venky's to write off the debt that they've accrued. It would be stupid. I'm just merely stating that as long as these owners have this structure in place where you have, at least it appears to me, the manager being the foremost football man on the ground in England to run the football side of the club, that once things go wrong with the manager, who actually makes the decision to sack the manager when the manager's the one who's actually in charge of the football side of the business. And that business model and that business structure at Rovers is what has landed us in the mess that we're in over the last few years. That because the manager at Rovers has so much autonomy over signings, over recruitment decisions, just over contracts, even over the goal music and where the fans sit in stands. You know, that's the extent to which the manager at Rovers has autonomy over everything to do with the football side of the club. And as long as that remains in place and as long as that policy remains in place, we will bumble from one manager to the next. And when the manager becomes stale and past the sell-by date, we will be in this situation again. So I'll look past the insult about my age and I'll just merely state the point again that I wasn't expecting Venky's to be that stupid as to write off the debt because, you know, why would they? Why would they write off the debt? They're under no obligation to, and I don't expect them to. You know, merely stating that you don't think they can get us up doesn't mean I expect them to, you know, give us any special treatment financially. It's just a mere fact or opinion of mine that I just don't think they can equip us to get promoted.
And I think, Alex, just to add to that, the only way the Venky's are getting their money back is if we get promoted. But we aren't going to get promoted if they keep having this structure of the three guys that run the club being so, like you said, the manager, Steve Keane was the epitome of that. He basically ran the club from day to day and the Venky's just let him get on with it. And we seem to have kind of got back to that same scenario of Mowbray's kind of making those decisions. And it's kind of like the definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I was kind of optimistic that we had a model, we could play possession football, use the academy and keep chopping away at that gap between us and the Premier League and get there eventually and pay that debt off. If it meant going up and getting relegated straight away to pay off the debt, I was happy with that. But I feel like as the seasons go by, we get further and further away from that. I feel like we were closer to that when we were in League One and we had the momentum, whereas we're kind of going backwards again now. And we're kind of back to that end of a cycle of a manager and how do we change this and start again to try and do it again. And it's kind of like getting halfway up the hill, falling back down. And it's, yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying, Alex. I can see them writing the debt off. The only way they get it back is if we get promoted or if somebody pops out of nowhere. I think Shawn Michaels has been mentioned in the comments. Some rich owner wants to pay him off and it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, but even a new owner coming in won't give Venkis the amount that they've invested, because the pricing of the club, if it was put up for sale tomorrow, will be predicated on two things: the net asset value and its price-earnings ratio. We're making losses, and the only assets that we've got effectively are Brockhall, and we're selling half of that, and Ewood Park. And with all due respect to the good citizens of Ewood, it's not the most salubrious area in Lancashire into which you could knock the stadium down and turn it into prestige housing. So the assets of the club that we've got that are readily saleable, Brockhall notwithstanding, are the players. There's nothing else, and it will not chip away at that 200 million quid that they've invested already. So Venkers have got a choice that they carry on, and I've seen an argument which has merit in that they are so loaded that they don't notice 20 million a year. And that's, well, it seems feasible, doesn't it? Because they've been doing it for 10, 11 years. Yeah, it's loose change to them. It's like me giving my niece 20 quid for a birthday. And you don't notice it, kind of thing. That's the scale of the investment on their half. So if you bring in somebody else in, they've got to be able to do that. And within the strictures of FFP, somehow put a structure in place that can generate a cohort of talent coming through that's good enough to get us into the Premier League, whether that's Bosmans, frees, loans, or academy players. That's the way that it would have to be. So it's not impossible. Barnsley, and dare I say, our friends up the M65 managed to get up there. Have bounced around a couple of times, but have now sort of like set themselves in. Those are the role models for Rovers.
Sheffield United, those sorts.
Yeah. The worrying thing with them lot up the road as well, Ian, are the fact that they have their new training ground and facilities and things now, and might start picking up.
Are they state of the art? Are they state of the art? That's the question.
Yeah, well, quite. But if they start picking off the talent and production line that we've been doing in recent years, that's another worry, and we've got to be really careful in that regard.
It's a highly competitive area in Lancashire, and you've got the rule as well about the length of time that youngsters can travel to join academies. So we're up against City, United, Liverpool, Everton, Burnley, on it goes. It's really, really difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, I'm going to come to you next. Sound bites coming out of Twitter. So Rich Sharp has tweeted, Rovers would need to win each of their remaining games to finish with more than the 63 points they did last season. So looks like we are obviously going to get a lower points total than last season. And we're still 5 shy of the 51 that we got when we were relegated in 2016 and 17, obviously. And then a really interesting soundbite that came from, I need to find the person who, someone called Andrew Robinson. Steve King's worst run was 1 win in 13 games. Mowbray has surpassed him now with 1 win in 14. We were talking, Alex, before we came live. Our remaining fixtures are difficult. We've got Cardiff away next. Obviously, they're chasing the playoffs, even though they're getting battered at the moment away at Sheffield Wednesday, rather surprisingly. But then we've got all those teams that are below us: Huddersfield, Derby, Rotherham, Birmingham, etc., etc. Have you got a real fear that if Rotherham and Birmingham are within touching distance of Rovers in those penultimate games, this season could end drastically if we are not careful?
You've asked me this question, Ryan, after a few games in the last 2 months, and I've become less and less convinced and confident every time you've asked me. So I think a couple of months ago I said no chance. Last week I said maybe. And tonight I'm going to say, well, if we lose on Saturday, which I think probably the majority of Rovers fans would think likely, particularly at a ground that although we won there last season with an Armstrong special, hasn't been a happy hunting ground for Rovers historically, that we then go into the last 6 games of the season against teams that need the wins as much as we do. And as I mentioned before, the perfect games that you want going into the last 6 are those QPRs, Lutons, that are right in the middle of the table, that are too far away from the playoff positions and are far enough away from relegation so that the players are on the beach already. And we don't have that at Rovers. If we go into the last 2 games needing points to stay in this division, I cannot see that with the way that these players are playing for this manager as of today, I cannot see them going to Rotherham under pressure and getting a result. I just, everything about the team at the moment, if I look at the way that we're playing and the style of play that we're employing, and even right down to the set pieces and the penalties today, everything that we're doing is going wrong at the moment. You know, Joe did an excellent thread on Twitter about our style of play, and he's exactly right. You know, the forwards are so high and wide that there's such a massive gap between midfield and attack. You know, you need a Barcelona-esque pass to put them through so we don't create any chances. And the midfield are left with nothing else other than to pass back to the full-back and back to the centre-back and back to the goalkeeper. And that's that endless cycle. And lo and behold, we make a mistake and we let the opposition in. So I think, you know, I can't believe I'm saying this, but, you know, we are in a relegation battle now. You look at that league table, we are 17th in the division. We are in a relegation scrap. You know, these clubs that have had bad seasons, the likes of Birmingham, they're 5 points behind us with a game in hand. You know, we are not far away from those clubs anymore. You know, we are in this scrap with them. And the sooner that we all accept that, and the sooner that the people in the dugout accept that, because that's my fear, that the people in the dugout don't actually accept that we're in a scrap here. This, you know, the longer that this agony is protracted, I think the worse the outcome will be for this season. And as I said before, anything, any change of scenery, any change of voice, any change of face to get us that one win that we desperately need. You know, I'd even send a Luke Kimbley, 𝐂𝐻𝐍𝐓 double act down Saturday at Cardiff. They might get a point. They have a better chance than Marbury. So in all seriousness, I think, yeah, we've reached the end of the road and we all know it. You know, we all know when a manager's reached the end of the sell-by date. You know, I've kind of reflected a few times on how sad it is about how it's ended for Marbury, because I think we all held him to a higher standard than what we'd held previous managers to in terms of the experience we had in League One and the promotion and all of the goodwill that surrounded that, and particularly really the first piece of success that I'd ever witnessed as a Rovers fan. But I have to say that the respect's been lost now, and that's a really hard thing to say, but the respect's gone, and the sooner that the whole thing is put to rest, the better, I think, for everyone's sake. Because, as Ian said before, I think the big thing now is what goes on next season as well. Because, you know, as you said, Ryan, if we're getting a lower points total this season than last season, with, in my opinion, a better squad, you know, if we lose 12 players this summer and have a weaker squad in this season, what will Marbury do with a weaker squad than we've got now? You know, if we're 17th now with the likes of Harvey Elliott and Adam Armstrong in the side, what we're going to be like without those two.
Yeah.
That's my big fear. And how we persuade people to buy into that for next season. And none of those questions have been answered. And I don't think you can answer them without sacking the manager.
Yeah, and that's my fear as well, Alex. You know, I think we are all accepting that next season might be a bit of a transition season with some of those personnel changes and what you've said there. Absolutely. I think many of us will probably think that we might come bottom half, maybe mid-table mediocrity. I just don't want us to fall off a bloody cliff going into next season, which at the moment we are gearing ourselves up to do. Ian, I'm just going to come to you. So this is an interesting one from Jamie. 36 personnel changes in the last 4 games. I hadn't quite clocked that. That's quite incredible if that's true. But I did see a comment earlier on, which I've lost now in the comments. I think it might have been Leap Year Man saying that the players might not be geared up for a relegation battle because we've been looking upwards for the majority of the season. Alex has laid it out there, and I agree with him. I absolutely think we are in a relegation battle. Do you think this squad have the fight and will ultimately get us over the line? Do you think they have that in them? Or is this spiralling out of control really worryingly for you?
A little from column A, a little from column B, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think we've got the talent in the squad to win. We need to win 2 games, don't we? 2 games from 6. So looking at the fixture list, Derby County at home, Huddersfield Town at home, Birmingham City at home. In January, you'd have been sort of saying anything less than 9 points from those is an abject failure. But so much of modern sport is played in the head. It's fine margins. The worrying thing, we talked about it just before we came on holidays, how many of the players that have got the talent and the ability, their contracts are up. And will they just be holding back a little bit for fear of injury? Or there must be talk amongst the players. They must have their own WhatsApp groups that sort of say, crikey, the boss has said that again, has he? You can just imagine the sorts of comments that are flying around. And if you're asking someone to give everything, literally sort of put everything on the line in that game to get us the points, and their contract is up in the summer, I just that's the bit that worries me. I don't think they will do it consciously. I don't think players necessarily down tools like that. I just think there's just it's just putting that extra 1 or 2% in to make a difference in a game. I'd just be worried that in some of those fixtures, and I remember when we went down under Brian Kidd or whatever, there was a home game against Nottingham Forest, and that was the one that we had to win. And in the press in the week leading up to it, it was all the way, this is the one, come on, come on, come on, come on. Forest scored first, and that was it. Like the atmosphere in the stadium. And there's no fans in, which may or may not be a good thing. But if you can imagine that game against Rotherham United, if we pack the away end and we score first, you can only think that would be incentive for the players then to go on and record a victory. No fans in there, and we know what we're like when we go behind. That's the worry. So my worry isn't about talent. My worry is about how to use that talent, so formation tactics. My worry is about character. And somebody said earlier about lack of leaders. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think we have a team full of captains. Not like in the Souness team, where you could have almost handed out the captain's armband to any one of 6 or 7 players in that side. That worries me. That does worry me. I don't think Tony knows his best team.
No.
I genuinely don't. And I think the 36 changes or whatever is him just desperately rolling the dice. Tony Tombola has become a statement of how we select our teams now, as opposed to being a figure of fun on Twitter. That's the scary thing. If you felt that the manager knew his best tactics, his best formation, and his best players to achieve, and we were just unlucky today, that's one thing. But say, well, you need to score goals to win football matches. Okay, is that where we're at now, Tony? That doesn't inspire me with confidence. Yeah. Meanwhile, the players' WhatsApp group are bing, bing, bing. I don't think we'll go down, but I think more through the failings of others.
Yeah,
and the 6-point reduction for Sheffield Wednesday.
Quite. And I'm just going to put another question to you then, Ian. We have only won one home game in 2021, the Luton Town game. Does that concern
That was a bit
you?
Fortunate, wasn't it?
Yeah. So is there a concern there for you that, Derby, I agree. Derby, for me, that is the huge, huge game in all of this. It's the first. Cardiff's going to be tough. We've then got Derby, and we need to get ourselves out of that relegation battle and plant Derby right back in it. Are you worried that with just that one home win in 2021 that we might not get those wins?
Well, yeah. I think we're all worried that we might not. I think we'll probably still be kicking off against Birmingham with something to play for.
Oh, don't! I can't.
But if I had to pick two teams that we've got to play to get the 6 points, I'd say Derby at home and Birmingham at home are the two that I would be most hopeful for. I think we struggle away at Rotherham. Somehow they seem to have our number every single season we played them. We absolutely tubbed Wednesday last season, so that's not going to happen again. Statistically, that tells me that you don't go them twice. Cardiff, that's a bit tricky. So it comes back to the 3 home games. Can we win 2 of those 3 home games? Yes, we can. Will we?
Yeah.
I think we'll probably win 1, draw 1, and it'll end up being enough.
For me,
you heard it here first.
Yeah, Derby and Huddersfield, they are the 2 for me, because I want us not needing anything against Rotherham or Birmingham. You're right about Rotherham. I can just see us losing that game. And Birmingham are just bloody Birmingham. They've escaped on the final day before, at our expense before as well.
To our cost, yes.
Yeah, you can just see them bloody rocking up at Ewood Park and nicking a result. So I want absolutely nothing on those games in May. Derby and Huddersfield are the 2 huge ones. They are the ones for me. Absolutely. Glenn, I'm going to come to you before we seek to wrap up this stream, as we've got over an hour now. You just wanted to ask, you've raised a point in our little private chat here. When have Rovers in any generation risen to the challenge of a relegation battle and been successful? Is that really concerning you that we don't have the fight for that?
Yeah, I think as long as I can remember, whenever we've been trapped in a relegation battle, it's never really ended up very well. I think the one with Steve Keane at Wolves was kind of one of those where we had enough points as we got to the end of the season and we pulled a performance out of nowhere to stay up. But from all the other relegation battles we've been involved in, kind of the Mowbray one and Coyle kind of aside, but we still ended up going down. I just don't think as a team we have that kind of clutch gene to go and get a win and avoid relegation, like a Birmingham, like you say, who's kind of well trained. They've been in these battles before. They know they need to go get a win, and they'll grind one out of somewhere. Rotherham the same. Barnsley last season. Luton last season. I mean, Luton on the last day of the season last year, did we score first and still got beat? Could you imagine if we needed a win and we conceded? There'd be no chance. We'd get nothing from that game. And that's a worry.
Score 3 from one shot on target because of the own goals.
Yeah, because of the own goals. Yeah, I mean, and that's when we didn't need to win. Imagine if we did need to win, it'd be worse than that. I mean, just to add to what you said about where the wins are going to come from, Derby and Huddersfield, you've said there. By the time we play Derby and Huddersfield, they could be needing points, and they could know that they need points more than we do. And it becomes a battle of, well, they know they need points, and they've got that mentality to win more than us because it's more of a necessity. Whereas with us, it's kind of, we're nearly on the beach now. And that's my big worry. I don't have any happy memories of relegation battles, which is obviously a bit of an oxymoron in itself, but we never seemed to stay up. It was like, even when we went to Brentford under Mowbray, I had every confidence we'd win, but still go down. And that's just maybe a Rovers fan's mentality, is to think the worst. But I don't want to be going into the last game of the season needing something, because I don't think we'd get it just from that mentality. And the fact of the run at the minute is, I thought when we got the win against Millwall, we got the draw against, I'm trying to remember the results now, got the draw against Swansea, and then we drew against Norwich. I thought, great, we've turned the corner, we can push on a little bit now. We'll beat Wickham and everything will be all right and rosy and we'll be mid-table. And we just regressed kind of 3-4 weeks again, back to that kind of just nothingness. And I think the Bradley Dack injury has a big emphasis on that in terms of deflating the squad. But there's opportunities for people. Dack's going to be out for 10, 12 months. Right, next man up, this is your chance. You go and shine and show you can be that Dack player. And just no one seemed to grab that opportunity. And whether that's because they've not been given the opportunity, whether we put the wrong person in that place. I think Harry Chapman signed a new contract last week. Is he going to be the next man to get a go in that false 9, that number 10 role? It's kind of, this formation doesn't work. It's worked brilliantly for the first 3-4 months of the season when we got great results. And since then, it's just not worked. So for me, it worked with Danny Graham. And I'd get him out of retirement for the running. Just somebody different up front. Someone who's going to... I mean, if we went behind at Ewood and there was 10 minutes left to play, Danny Graham would be geeing everybody up. He'd be a leader on the pitch. He'd be getting the crowd going. There's nothing. You concede and it's 20 minutes to go. Let's just pass it around a bit more. And that's my frustration, is if we go a goal down in each of those last games, we aren't coming back from that because there's not a mentality to do it. And there's not a crowd to get behind him to do it. And there's no leaders on the pitch to do it either. We just kick off, pass it around again, instead of let's show a bit of impetus. And that's the massive worry for me, is the more games we concede in, we're just not going to get any points because we just don't capable of doing it.
Yeah, that has been the most frustrating part of this season, when we are going behind in games, and obviously you know what happens next. It's just, that is terrible as a fan, isn't it? But Glenn, Michael and Tom have reminded you of Wolves away, which was a great day, Michael. It was. I was there.
Don't even say. I had to go on holiday with the missus that year, so I missed it. And you'd gone to that. All the lads went to it. I missed it because we booked a holiday because I thought we'll have nothing to play for then, and missed a fantastic day out. And Tom, whose comment you just popped up there, I'd just like to say thanks for the beers that he sent me from America. So let him know that he's helping me drown my sorrows tonight.
There we go. Well, I'm going to wrap up the stream there. I think we have done this to the best of our ability. I think, it's Groundhog Day because we know that this manager needs to change, but really what's come to the fore today with how the results have gone is sadly, and as Leap Year Man points out, it is really sad that we are having this conversation about potential relegation. That is the acuteness of our situation now, and we need a couple of wins, preferably against Derby and Huddersfield, so that we can all go to the beach and relax in May somehow, because I said it earlier and I'll say it again, I do not want anything on those games against Rotherham or Birmingham, because that is setting us up for one huge mighty fall. So please, Rovers, please, if you're not going to sack the manager, please beat Derby and please beat Huddersfield. That's all we ask, or preferably Cardiff and the other one we've got as well, Sheffield Wednesday. Let's just get these couple of wins and make everyone relax. So, yeah, just want to say thank you, Alex and Glenn, for joining me again on the post-match. And Ian, thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the watch-alongs and the post-matches certainly make it a much better pill to swallow, because, my God, what's on offer at the moment, footballing-wise, is not the best. So,
yes, as we say, misery loves company. So this is excellent company which to share the
misery. It is. No, thank you. You're all good company. And Rovers fans who have viewed in, thanks for all of your interactions today on the watch-along and on this post-match stream as well. We absolutely love bringing the content and sharing our pain with all of you. So, you are all that make the show happen. Just a couple of things. We will be back with On the Other Side on Friday night to preview the Cardiff game. And then we'll be back, of course, with our watch-along and post-match live stream as we usually do. I'll say bye and happy Easter to Ian, to Glenn and to Alex. Happy Easter to all of you Rovers fans. Enjoy the rest of your bank holiday Monday. And I'll leave you with our sponsor message from Blue Rose Capital and from 6YardsOut.com. See you later.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6YardsOut.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.